Hi, everybody. We're here again for another episode of Coach's Corner. With me is my friend Adam Gaheb of
Hey,
Focal Point
folks.
Terry, and I'm Mike Lamb of Focal Point of Utah. Also with us is Leon Lowman of Focal Point of Pikes Peak Region. And we're here for another episode talking business, strange things like UFOs, maybe Bigfoot, the chupacabra, whatever we decide to talk about today, we might go there. But mostly we're going to talk about business. So
Yep.
now that we have Leon with us, I'd like him to introduce himself a little bit and tell us about his background.
Welcome, Leon.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, this is I'm really happy about being part of my focal point cohort. We all came in
Yep.
and built friendships right away. So this is really excellent. My background is the reason I'm out here in the Pikes Peak region is I'm originally from Georgia and came out here to go to school. So I graduated from the Air Force Academy and had started time in the Air Force where I was in program management and that's a lot. We'll talk about that's a lot of the formative parts of my leadership thinking is what I learned at the Air Force Academy. But I had a
Yep.
corporate career as corporate exec after that, and then recently I've joined on with Focal Point because I found my superpower in the corporate world was building high performance teams. My teams would always get poached, people always get pulled away, and I'm constantly rebuilding teams. And I really like doing that, and I like helping others with that. So that's kind of my practice is trying to help people with building. If they have a team and they wanted to increase their performance, they're an ideal client for me.
Awesome, Leon.
Awesome.
That definitely leads right into our topic perfectly. So we didn't plan that at all.
Not
Um,
at all. I promise.
so I got a question for you. What are the most important characteristics you're seeing today in leadership?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of analysis, a lot of people trying to figure things out, specifically for generational change, for economic and post-COVID type change and remote work and in work. So I think people are really trying to understand what works in terms of a model for leadership. And so, but for me, it comes back to core values. You got to kind of start with those core values. And so that's where the most important characteristics. Like I said, I go back to, at the Air Force Academy, some of the core values way back then. 17, 18-year-old kids coming out there and trying to come together as
Mhm.
teams is integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And so that kind of stuck with me over the course of my Air Force career, my corporate career. And I'm looking at having those core values as a centerpiece for how you move forward with leadership.
When you first start talking to a client, Leon, how do you kind of evaluate where they are with their understanding of their own values and their own culture?
Yeah, well, I ask clients questions about, their business, where they're trying to go, where they
Sure.
are now, maybe some of the gaps. And I really pay attention to how they describe those things. And you can get a feel for what they're focused on, where their interests are. And then I try to see as we go deeper in the conversation, is there transparency there? Or, I mean, are they trying to give me maybe a line of what they think I want to hear? Or are they really starting to tell me, what I need to hear to be able to help them build out and grow their business? So try to get to what is their core message that they're trying to tell me when I'm listening to those answers for the questions.
Do you find that's easy to kind of tease out?
No, I mean it takes a while too, and it's not like you when I've been coaching a client for a bit, it's way easier because once we get past that initial kind of trust period, they trust you enough to bring you on as a coach, as a trusted advisor, and then they start to see some results from the things you're giving them that can help them, some of the action plans and the other things. They're
Hmm.
really willing to. They want to get the most out of it. I think I use an analogy of someone in the gym. I mean, I know we're not personal trainers, but if there's someone that really tells you what their fitness goals are, and you think they really want to do it, and you're trying to coach them as a trainer, and they don't want to do the work, well, probably that's not matching up. What they're telling you is not matching up with what they're going to be able to accomplish. So it's not easy, Adam. Sometimes it takes time.
Yeah.
No,
No, it's certainly not.
I ran into that this week with one of my clients, been coaching with him for some time. And I thought we were pretty transparent with one another. And I learned things this week with him, like I wish I would have known earlier on, but that trust wasn't there for him to share that. And now it's changed
Yep.
a lot of my focus on how I'm coaching him. I mean, his leadership style and how he's running things is different than I assumed or what I believed it to be. And so we have, yeah, we're talking about it and we're having to build new structure around what we're coaching, um, based on what,
Well,
yeah,
if you think about it, Mike, that's kind of what we're doing constantly, right? Learn, reevaluate, and then replan. And that's really not all that dissimilar from any of the leadership areas in which we end up coaching in general, right? I mean, just thinking about leadership in general, we started talking about culture and values and whatnot, but we're really quickly diving into one of our favorite topics, which is communication. Um, Leadership and communication have such a vital role of being intertwined and intermixed. It's kind of hard to pull the two apart. And if you don't have that good level of communication, it's really hard to be a good, strong leader, right?
makes it almost impossible.
Yeah.
Agree.
Leon, do you see similar things?
Yeah, do. As a matter of fact, I just did a workshop, if you will, last week.
Hmm.
It was a group of program managers, project managers, a local association here that I belong to, and we talked about communication, and that's where I shared with them the idea. But you all have probably heard of the golden rule: do unto others as you have them do unto you. But
Sure.
in communication, being effective and improving your teams, you need to go with the platinum rule, which is communicate to others the way they want you to communicate to them. And we kind of went through that whole thing and shows how you can use behavioral assessments and other things to help you understand and be more effective as a communicator, like what you're saying, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you had to lay it out and say, what are your top three areas of focus to ensure strong leadership within an organization? What would you kind of say that those three are?
I look for authenticity because, okay, a big part of my, makeup is always integrity,
Hmm.
integrity. And my personal definition of that I've learned over time is when your public self and your personal self is the same guy. When that's high integrity, right? So when you're looking and talking to leaders and coaching and trying to help them, they need to be authentic. They don't need to tell you something to make you go down a track of thinking this is their leadership style. And then as you get
Okay.
deeper into it and deeper into it, they reveal something to you, Mike, that you realize, I kind of changed this because you learned something different than what you expected. So that's one thing, it's authenticity.
One,
Um,
you're on the
the next,
spot, man.
uh, yeah, I guess the next thing would be for me is kind of mission. Or when I say that, I'm not going back to the military. I'm just saying you need to be aspiring for something that's bigger than yourself. And
Okay.
so if you can, everybody wants to be profitable and wants to be successful, maybe want to be famous or whatever it might be. However, if you can tie your leadership style into your true self and trying to do something that's bigger than you, it's way easier to get a talented team around you that can embrace that same bigger than you mission. So that way, it's not all about the leader; it's about what they're trying to accomplish together. And the leader just happens to be the one that's leading the team.
Okay.
So
And last?
let's see. When you come back, I also look at, and this is kind of going back to my consultant days, I guess, but I look at alignment. And once again, it kind of all ties together because once you can figure out, the core values and where they're trying to go, maybe the mission, then you can craft a strategy where you want to go business wise. Once you can understand that strategy, then you can start to build alignment, between
Hmm.
maybe their operational capabilities, the technology they're selecting, whatever it might be, that aligns with where they're trying to go, what matches up with their strategy. So if you can't build a consistent umbrella of those pieces that fit together, you're going to fail at trying to, you buy a typical, say, technology package for rapid change when your overall core value, you want to go slow and steady and be a second mover and all this. You got to make those things match up. And that's kind of what you try to pull out of the leader by asking a lot of questions.
So what I'm hearing is four things, right? We got that are good for a leader to have. Authenticity, alignment was one of them,
Yeah.
Hmm.
vision, mission, vision, and then communication.
Yep.
Um, do we have things in at Focal Point build out to coach on these things at all? I'm not
I'll let
certain.
Leon take that one.
Yeah, well, that's a one I know on one of your previous, coaches' corners, you had a superstar talking about the idea of how the focal point system has been successful, and it can make a difference and cause a positive impact. Maybe versus we're not talking down any of our competitors, but versus others that may not have that type of system in place. And so, yeah, when you look into the focal point system, Mike, if you we have a couple of ways we pull all this content, these 20 years plus of content together. But either way you go, if it's with the stack or with the CGL or whatever it might be, um, it has modules, proven processes, models, action items, things you can do to move forward in all of those areas. All of those areas.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll add there is every module that we walk through, I think there are two things to take away. There's what the focus of the education was, and then when you actually get through and you start reviewing the overall session, their interpretation of what was to be pulled out and kind of where you go is always completely different. So I always, when I talk through any given client session, it's all right, what'd you take out of the material? And then it's how do you apply said material? And we end up talking more about the application in their own personal space a lot more, which makes a ton of sense, right? It's their space, it's their sphere of influence, it's what they know, and more importantly, what they're dealing with. So, absolutely, that's the overall focus of conversation. But my point is interpretation, Leon, right?
Yeah.
How people interpret the content is always different. And so having an active coach who has two things, right? Active listening,
Yes.
extremely important. Also, one of those traits that I think is a necessity for any of our great leaders these days. And number two, the ability to respond and react. Through active listening, you identify new areas of focus or influence. And Mike, I think this is kind of what you were getting to prior, right? Is respond and react. And we can drive down different paths, new paths, and we can uncover and kind of discover some additional areas of focus. And to me, that's what kind of makes our system and our content fantastic because not only does it piggyback off of what you learned previously, but there's so many deviations, and variations because we're taught active listening number one, right? It's fascinating stuff.
You know, the one thing that leads or guides my coaching more than anything is the very first thing we do, which is the communication breakthrough. Um,
Mm. Yep.
there's so much that comes from doing the behavior style and the disc, that communication breakthrough, helping them understand how they communicate, how their employees communicate, how they want to be communicated to, and their driving forces behind that. Man, if
Yep.
they have a breakthrough on that, it really will give you great direction to help them as a leader become an even greater leader, than what they currently are.
I use that to kind of set all of my initial curriculum, all of it, right? Based
Uh,
on that disc assessment debrief, you get a really good sense of where you have to go. Now, how you get there and how you piecemeal it together, well, that's on us because I mean that's our expertise, right? But man, that's a great starting point.
yeah.
So getting back to leadership as a whole, Leon, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you see facing today's leaders?
It really depends on their reality, like you're saying before. When you take the modules and work with them, what you were perfectly explaining, Adam, is you always, as a coach, turn it back to be specific to their reality. You're
Mhm.
not trying to take a book learning or some kind of theoretical business construct and just force fit them into it. You're trying to take their reality and match it up. And so, when I'm looking at that, it's. I know it's trying to understand the reality of your client, where they are, and how you apply the things you're trying to take them through. So
Okay.
pull them into
All right.
something that matters to them. And that's the difference between coaching and maybe bringing in like a consultant. I see in the marketplace, there are a lot of consultants out there that can help you with different things. And they might have subject matter expertise in one area, but they're in some ways they may be trying to sell a framework or a process the one size fits
Hmm.
all or whatever it might be versus being specific to the reality of the client.
How about you, Mike? Biggest leadership challenge you're seeing?
Um, I think stopping and keeping the vision. of where they want to be and what they want to
Mm,
accomplish is what I run into a lot.
yeah.
And it's probably why a lot of these people are coming to me for coaching is because they had that vision at some point in time and they were driven and things were going great and they, were climbing up the business life cycle as we refer to it. They were going towards growth, and then something's changed and they've come off of there and they've lost their vision of where they want to be. And they don't stop and reevaluate. They get so caught up in the day to day and things that are happening, they don't slow down to get back to that vision. That's what I see.
Mm.
It's hard for leadership because if you don't have that vision, then your guiding star is just moving around like a bird in a cage.
Let me piggyback on
Sounds
that
like
and
you
tell
should.
you. Oh,
So
go ahead. I'm
hold
sorry.
on. Sounds like you should really get back to last week's episode and have them all talk through three eyes, right?
Yeah.
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 Um, for me, I think it's fairly clear. What I'm seeing a lot of is I'm working with some bigger businesses here, and so there's a disconnect between boots on the ground and what's happening at the lower levels versus strategy. And so, not to sound like a broken record, but to me, it all goes back to communication, knowing your organization, and knowing how to make sure that your message is being hit across each and every level. Be- Because you may have the greatest vision, Mike, and Leon, you may have the best possible people in order to execute, but just one degree of deviation from north, right? You were just talking about your North Star, Mike, right? If we're and then you're not having those checks and balances in place, well, 3, 4 months down the road, your end result is a lot different than what your vision was laid out. And so for me, what I'm seeing a lot of is just inability of knowing how to connect and how to follow up to make sure that those key critical areas of focus and influence are indeed aligned across the entire organization, right? And to me, that starts at the very top. It has to. But everyone has an ownership piece there. So it's how do you breed that accountability and the responsibility throughout the organization? And then secondly, how are you communicating so that everyone is aligning their deliverables that are meeting up with your key core challenges that you may have for the quarter, the year, et cetera.
So how do you
Matt,
coach that?
well, that's a value, though. That's a
How do I
value of
coach
a
that?
coach is that, having a coach come in and in addition to the leader who's there in position with positional authority and what have you, having a coach come in and be kind of can stand back and take an objective look at the golf swing. You can kind of tell someone how to change their grip or how to change some of the angles
Sure
or
can.
whatever of attack. Versus if you're right there in it and you're the leader and you're doing a swing and you can't look at that, you don't have a coach necessarily. A coach can really help you in that area.
So,
Sure can. And Mike, without laying out the full roadmap, because we don't give away our secret sauce,
yep.
uh, but it starts with understanding all the different levels and the nuances to the organization. If you go down each level, let's say we're talking about a three-tiered organization here. Your top goal from the CEO or someone from your C staff, you check to see what all the supporting goals are from that next tier, that next layer down, and you identify whether or not there is alignment in that particular, let's call it drop off or step point. Clearly, you follow through that same principle down to your third layer. If you see any deviation whatsoever, then you know you have an issue. You always see deviation for the record, so no one should be upset if there is some. But for me, then it circles back to going at that top layer, gents. What is the communication schedule? Is it a poster that's sitting up on the hallway wall? Is it a weekly email that's going out to all staff? And is it reinforcing not only the principle or goal that you're trying to hit, but is it pulling in some of those morals, values, the culture that Leon, you were talking about prior? A good leader knows how to take his focal point. Oh, see what I did there? Focal point. And then
Kevin
tie
Hart.
it back into all the different communication paths and changes it up so that whether it's verbal, it's written, or it's some poster form, it reestablishes, reaffirms the overall direction and goal. And that to me is where you start, right? And then you tease off in multiple different directions. But that to me gives me a really good overview of how much work and where do we have to focus, because I can identify where we've seen the deviation. And more importantly, I can see where that communication has stemmed from. And more importantly, how it's changed throughout time,
Hmm.
right? That's just me, though.
Well, the kid, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say that, just having communication like once every 6 weeks, 8 weeks, just like I have a bone to
Doesn't
pick
cut it.
with you, is that gonna make it work? You
No,
know, it doesn't, does it? But that's what I
think
see
about it.
happen a lot. You get busy, everybody's busy, everybody's got things they're doing. You communicate something once, and then 6 months down the road, hey, we got to get back to this. Well, then we didn't talk about anything between here and there, and it's not aligned.
Yeah.
So, but that,
There's certainly a lot of different managerial styles and management styles and leadership styles, right? But let's be honest, the best leaders I've ever worked with are the ones that put their teams first. They're really selfless, right?
Service before
They are
self.
selfless. They've got this thing called empathy. It's crazy, but it exists. But they put their team first, and they're always trying to get the most out of their people because they've realized that their people truly are their number one asset. That's something we say so often and is so contrived at points, but the reality is, if you surround yourself with the best people possible, you take all the pressure off yourself as having to be that person that has all the answers, right? And if you focus your energy on fostering and growing and nurturing those people, Leon, you'll be all over this. It breeds success within your teams. It makes loyalty. It builds trust. Those people stay with you. And what happens when those people stay with you? What do you get at? What do you get from that?
Yeah, I mean, you have a longevity of experience that you're not dealing with the turnover issues, and you can keep moving forward and
Mm,
going to level to level to level and leveling up. So,
cohesion, man.
yeah,
well, it'll flow all
And
the way
that
up to the
cohesion is what
customer.
breeds optimization and efficiencies all the way down, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? Customers can feel it. They can sense it. They can tell if there's disconnect. And so having your organization be well run and being seamless is the best thing you can do to help instilling and getting that trust back from your customers, your clients, etc. You ask me, pound for pound, that's one of the biggest objectives that a true leader can do is to get that buy-in from their own people, keep them happy, have a pulse on the organization, be a good communicator, a better listener, and then lead through example. Simple as that.
Yeah, you're speaking to servant leadership essentially, which is a great book that I highly recommend to any leader. Just take a
Do you
minute.
have it handy?
I don't have it here. It's on a post
Oh,
up here. I'm not going to show you my butt while I'm reaching up there. So,
man,
fair.
appreciate that, Mike.
Yeah.
So, hey,
well,
one thing that I've been successful kind of coaching teams and leading teams in the past, and working with clients now, is the idea that you don't want to just gloss over that culture, right? Real quick, because there's
Yep.
something about having a team full of, diverse ideas and viewpoints where everybody can bring, you get the smartest people in your room, you get hire these, folks like you're saying, you want them to have the freedom to speak up. And so, and disagree with the leader, disagree. And so have a effort where all these best ideas come forward. But at the end of the day, you don't disrespect anyone with their ideas. So you don't personally attack someone. If even if you go in a different way, it doesn't mean that that person gets canceled out or something. You just keep bringing ideas to the table. And as a team, when you decide which way you're going, the leader makes that decision. Everybody comes back on, but they still feel free to continue to bring the best ideas forward. You don't want to squelch that.
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
Well, we're
Awesome.
getting up against it, guys.
That's right.
You gotta be kidding me. When you told me it was going to go fast, I'm like, hey, come on, man.
um, any closing thoughts from either of you?
I will let our esteemed guest go first.
Well, and just the idea of mission, I'm coming back to that once again because I worked at a place and I've been able to kind of coach some of the leaders there. It was a organization that was making some very specific, actual electronic parts for some very important like space emissions and other things. And it was very tough work. It was very engineering intense, but you as an expert or a professional in that, you can kind of lose sight of the ultimate goal you were looking for. So
Yep.
when the organization came back and tried to be mission centric, what they would do is they would come back and pull the very high level mission, like return to the moon, or a trip to Mars, or colony this, and point out these things that are amazing things you're working on that your small piece is a part of, and it got people fired up again for the overall mission, which is way bigger than just a little piece that they were working on. That was really
Yeah.
effective tool.
Yeah. So what I'd like to leave everyone with today is something very simple. Um, Leaders are something grown. And yes, there are certain characteristic traits that most good leaders have, and you just have them, right? You've been a coach, you are a team captain on something, you're vocal, you have vision. Great, those are characteristics. But my point is, a lot of the leaders get promoted into a position where they may not have all the experience, they may not have all the education, all the knowledge. Back to my point, leadership is something that is grown, it is fostered. So if you have that leadership urge, my greatest, let's call it recommendation, get a mentor, get two, get three, get them outside of your initial, let's call it industry and sphere of focus. Um, get help, tag on to people, look at people's styles and figure out what works best for you, but never stop learning because I don't care who we are, what we've done in our careers. We will always need to grow as a leader, as a person, as someone who is pushing out direction. So don't be afraid to grow because leaders are fostered over time. They're not built overnight. That's my takeaway.
Well, that's perfect way to end it. Thanks, guys, for being on again. Thanks, everybody that's been watching or listening. You can catch us on LinkedIn. Leon's profile is up there. We'll share this out for everyone to watch, and there's links
Awesome.
to Podbean and Apple where you can listen to all of the episodes. We have 11 of them now, so we're starting to get a collection there to go listen to if you want to do a binge. So, thanks again, guys.
Awesome.
We'll
Leon,
catch.
thank you very much, sir.
Thanks,
This was
guys. Good
fun.
to see you.